Connor O question mark Brian.
Hey, we're live.
We're live. Thank you. So welcome everybody to our public board meeting. It is January 26th, 2021, and we are calling the meeting to order. It is 7:02 p.m. and I'm going to ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we will move to the reading of the meeting notice. This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the open meeting session at the Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its annual reorganization meeting held on January 5th, 2021. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona Cedar Grove Times, the Star Ledger, the Township of Verona, and the VEA. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public School District website. The Verona Board of Education operates under a consent agenda format. Any board member has the right to have an item pulled to be voted upon or discussed separately. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public and press. And Mr. Turner, can you please do the roll call for attendance?
Mr. Allworth.
Here.
Mrs. Drappi.
Here.
Mr. Day. Mr. Day.
You're muted.
He's muted. Okay. Mrs. Prisco
Here.
and Mrs. Freshy.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you
Here.
very much. Oh, there's Mr. Day. He's here. And on the agenda. Oh, what was that?
That's the Verona train.
Oh, pulling in. Dr. Dionisio with the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. Just going to pull the report up here. So good evening. Welcome to our second meeting in January. I'd just like to start off by giving a brief update. Actually, perhaps we have some board members who'd like to speak to this. I don't want to lose sight of this. We do have a guest speaker that the board has coordinated for our next meeting on February 9th. For our public Board of Education meeting. His name is Mr. Vincent DeLucia. He's from New Jersey School Boards Association, and he will be presenting on different forms of bias and microaggressions and equity. So I know Mrs. Drappi and Mrs. Fresky had the opportunity to hear his presentation. Is there anything that you'd like to add for the public in anticipation of that? And I will just note that the board we will be sending out a press release on that for the public that will go out via email on Constant Contact, and we'll post it on the website. So that way the public is aware and can attend that session. So Mrs. Fresky, Mrs. Drappi?
Yeah, we didn't hear his whole presentation. He kind of gave us a overview of it. And I think it's important, and I'm very happy he was able to get us on his schedule because it's something that we've been committed to. I brought it up with Dr. Miller. I was part of the Education Council, and I put an invite out to Mr. Cavallo and the Town Council as well, and hoping, parents and students alike are going to be welcome on the call. And as Dr. Dionisio said, it's about inherent biases and microaggressions, and it's part of our commitment as a district to address these topics. And Mr. DeLucia is very excited. He's done the presentation for other districts, and he's excited to come to Verona and share his knowledge with us. So I'm excited to have him as a guest.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
The second part of my update this evening, I just want to recognize again, we did discuss this at the last Board of Education meeting on January 5th, I believe, the progress of the reconvened scheduling committees for Verona High School and HBW Middle School They are now operating on those revised school schedules. Since that update has been done and communicated out, they do have plans to reconvene at some point in February just to check in to see how things are going. If any other necessary revisions will be followed up on as we move into the late winter and specifically into the spring. The elementary schools committee continued to meet. They met again last week. I do know that they are going on a little bit of a hiatus and planning long-term. They've discussed a lot of different ideas, taken a look at the competing demands, the challenges, and had a lot of rich and meaningful conversations. At this point, there is no change to the elementary school at this time due to those challenges, but our elementary principals will be presenting at a future board meeting. So they will be communicating to us when we can get that on the schedule. We will try to aim for February, and we'll communicate that out when we have an update. And once again, it's just to provide some perspective on that committee process and the work that that committee did, and to share that back out with the Board of Education. So stay tuned for that. And I'd just like to thank all of our staff, the parents, our administrators, and our students who participated on those committees and provided their feedback. So that way the administration could make decisions and make recommendations. So that way we can move the schedule forward. On facilities, very happy. We're continuing to make progress with the final leg of the referendum project. I am going to turn it over for a moment, to Connor O'Brien from Legacy Construction Management, who will give us a little bit of an update. But I would draw attention to folks tonight. We do have just a follow-up to a resolution that the board approved for back in December during a special board meeting for the HVAC project. So the official contract with Environmental Climate Control Incorporated, ECC, the HVAC company who completed the work at Verona High School, we have moved into a contract with them that we approved back in December. The final contract is on for a board approval this evening. All of the details have been finalized and run by our board counsel, and we have that on as an addendum resolution this evening, and that's for all 4 elementary schools and HBW middle school. So making really good progress, and I just like to thank Mr. Higgins and specifically also Mr. O'Brien, who's been doing a tremendous job in stewarding that work. And I do know that we have some progress that we're very happy about with the window project at HBW. And next we'll be heading over to FN Brown. So I'm going to turn it over for a moment to Mr. O'Brien, who will give us an update on the window project.
Thanks, Dr. Denisio, for that. Just quickly to touch base on the windows, at HBW, we are doing our punch list tomorrow. So we have received the windows and installed them. We have 3 windows that unfortunately during delivery broke. They are back ordered, but the new window is in place and is set up so it's safe. It's not a hazard to anybody, and there's no weather getting inside those classrooms. Those will be replaced within the next couple of weeks. But it's just the glass that has to get replaced, so the frame is in set. The screens have started the process over there, and there's just some interior shades and stuff that we're coordinating with Joe Higgins for some shades that had to buy new ones because the old ones did not fit the new openings. It's not the whole entire school, it's just the annex that was affected, and that should be fixed this week, I believe. Joe, that's correct, right? This week the screens will be, or the shades will be in?
That is correct, Connor.
Okay, so by end of the week, the shades will be in at the school. I know that's a point that the teachers keep asking when they're going to get in. The purpose of that was to get the majority of the windows put in. If we ever had a rain day, the work would be able to continue. And luckily, we didn't get any rain days, so they kept continuing with the full window install. So that will be done. At FM Brown, we have majority of the material on site. The rest of it should be here tomorrow. There was delays with today due to the weather, and we'll be starting that as soon as we complete our punch list tomorrow. So Thursday, we're projected to start F and Brown, and that should take about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on weather and just material as they remove it from the trailers, make sure there's no damage. And that's the update on that. The rest of the projects, the updates have been posted every Friday. We have one issue at Lanning with the front stairs with the asphalt. That is being handled with the contractor, as well as letters that have been sent to get it done in a timely fashion, which is tough to say at this point in January. Other than that, I don't have any other further updates with the projects. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, great. Thank you, Connor. Any questions from anybody on the board? Okay. Okay, moving on. We've been busy for the past number of weeks reviewing applicants, candidates for the school business administrator position. I've been conducting confidential interviews with candidates. We've completed the first round of interviews. And Mr. Turner and I are currently on the second round of interviews with candidates. We do anticipate that the process will run into March as we search for the new business administrator, who will also serve, which is typical, in a dual capacity as the board secretary for our school district. We are having some confidential interviews that will be done before administrators and our administrative assistants as part of this process. And obviously the Board of Education will also be interviewing the finalists for this position, since they do serve in that capacity as board secretary. I'll continue to provide updates as I'm allowed, because it is a confidential matter until we make the recommendation for the successful candidate. And we hope that we'll be able to do that by the end of March, if possible. So that way there's an anticipated start date of July 1 and an opportunity for the individual who is successful and chosen to meet staff and transition and work with Mr. Turner and Mr. Appleton in the board office. Along the lines of budget as well, Mr. Turner and I have been working on the budget process for the past several months. Each month has its own specific area of focus as we get closer and closer to the spring budget presentation. We're obviously working on the budget for the 2021-22 school year. We anticipate the governor's budget address is scheduled, which is where we will receive the report on state aid. That's scheduled for late February. So we will sit by and wait for that number to come through. That's a very important number for us in order to be able to help us along in our budget. And as everyone knows, we've had in prior history that reduction in state aid. So we hope that we will at least be able to remain flat during this pandemic and the loss in revenue for the state. And hopefully, I hope that we'll be able to go up a little bit, but we're just happy if we'd be able to stay flat right now and not lose. We continue to work on making sure that we get the cost increases to the healthcare premiums. That is also anticipated to come in late February as well. And in the meantime, Mr. Turner and Mr. Balaj will work with me on the budget process on all the other aspects that are to be conducted internally with our staffing projections and taking a look at the needs and working with our administration. So more to come in the coming months as we approach the end of March and into April. As everyone's aware, the COVID vaccine is becoming more and more readily available. Some of our staff have been fortunate. They've been contacted regarding appointments to be vaccinated. So that's a really positive thing, even though the vaccine is being prioritized right now to the essential personnel, healthcare personnel on the front lines. But we do have staff who have been vaccinated already. In anticipation of our staff receiving these opportunities to obtain the vaccine, the district communicated to our staff that we're providing them the opportunity to, during the time when they have an appointment for receiving the vaccine, for the district to provide substitute coverage or allow for them to provide asynchronous instruction for their students during that time slot that they're getting the vaccine, to make it easier for them. So then that way we can try to get our staff vaccinated as quickly as possible when we have these opportunities, when it falls within school hours. So we'll continue to do that to support our staff. We have taken proactive measures. We're having conversations with other school districts, and I've had conversations with other personnel to explore the possible options to partner with politicians, officials, locally, regionally, at the state governments regarding the vaccine distribution for our staff specifically, trying to see if there's anything that we could do to bring a number of vaccines here to Verona to try to vaccinate our staff and give that opportunity to accelerate this process, to expedite this process as soon as possible. So that's still in the works. We'll continue to explore those options and see if we can do anything to move that along. And then last but not least, spring break, believe it or not, is March 29th to April 2nd. And although it's about 8 weeks away, we are looking at that because it is another break that's coming up. And in the past, like at Thanksgiving and at the December break, we had a shift to some remote learning as a precaution. We have not made a decision yet at this point as to what that will look like. And that will hinge, of course, on a lot of factors. It'll be driven by the current circumstances at that time, as we anticipate, as we're moving towards that, the end of March there. Taking a look at what the transmission rate is, monitoring the impact across the region and in our schools, and taking the guidance and advisement and recommendations from the Montclair Health Department as these weeks unfold. So we don't have an update right now, but we will hope to have something in the near future. And it's just a bit premature right now to be able to provide any of that information because we are so far out. So we really need to see what happens during the month of February and how things roll out with the vaccine and what the conditions look like in our local community, the regional area, and what the recommendations are from the health department. So that's all I have for the superintendent report this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Dionisio. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Dionisio in regard to his report?
Not a question, but just I think it's really good that we're trying to make it as easy as possible for the teachers to get that vaccine. I think the sooner they can all get it and the easier we can help make it's going to help us all get back to normal as fast as we can. And I think it's good that as a district we're kind of encouraging that. So I think that's really good.
Thank you, Mr. Allworth. Does anybody else have anything? If not, I am going to introduce Mr. Merkler, our athletics director, to give his report for athletics for us.
Is my screen shared?
It is.
Great, perfect. Okay, good evening, everyone. First of all, this fall season was definitely like no other season we've ever seen before, and hopefully we'll never see a season like this again. But during these times, there was a question really just throughout the summer if we were even going to be able to play the season. So it's with great pride I get to actually present our fall recap tonight. So first of all, I would like to say thank you. It took a lot of different people this year just to make this season possible. So the list of thank yous, if I forget you, I apologize, and it's impossibly long, but thank yous to the Board of Ed, Dr. Dionisio, Mr. Caldwell, Jason Callow, our coaches, our kids, our parents. Everyone pitched in this year to make sure that our seasons were safe and they were played. We started up in July 13th, I believe was the date, and we ended right before Thanksgiving. So, to be able to get the seasons played was really, really an amazing feat. So first, I'd like to talk about our cheer team. Our cheer team, they supported our football team at both the home and the away games. And they hosted a fundraiser to support breast cancer awareness and research. And what made this so special this year was, again, they always do a great job of raising money, but they raised $2,000 this year, which was I believe our highest amount. Donated that money to Manette's Angels for breast cancer awareness. And what was really great was this is the first time we actually ever held it on the field. We normally go inside the gym. So it was a really nice night, great community event. Everyone came out to pitch in. So it was really, really nice feat. Our girls tennis team, they're coming off a division title in 2019, They won their last 2 matches of the season with a 5-0 win over Cedar Grove and a hard-fought 3-2 win over Columbia. They once again qualified for the state tournament, and they had a number of players make the all-division teams, including first team Emma Dedarian, second team Catherine Hensel, and honorable mention Claire Jackson and Paige Hensel. Our football team finished with a 5-2 record, and they won the National White Division title for the 3rd straight season. They had a number of all-division players as well. First teamers Frank Riggio, Jason Zarin, Stephen Petro, Kale Zabrowski, Mike Matarazzo, Zach Booker, and James Haveron. And our honorable mention athletes were Brian Curry, Brody Neal, Steven Tafuri, and Danny Vecchio. Additionally, we had a couple all-state players this year. Frank Riggio made first team all-state group 2, which was his second time making that team. James Haveron made the second team all-state group 2, and Kale Zabrowski made third team all-state group 2. Our field hockey team completed their first season as a varsity team, and we actually have our first ever players who made an all-division team, including honorable mention Ava Perry and Mary Kate Dougherty. And Ava also made the All-Union Essex first team. Our girls cross-country team finished with a 6-3 final record. Veronica Valera and Annalie Ying both made first team All-Division, while Lucy Hogan was an honorable mention All-Division selection. And Veronica actually took 6th overall at the sectional championships this year. Our boys cross-country team, they medaled at the North 2 Group 2 sectional championships. They placed 5th overall. And they had 2 honorable mention all-division selections in Andrew Hunt and Nikhil Parikh. Our boys soccer team finished 7-5-1 this season, and the division they play in is the SEC American Division, which is one of the top conferences in the state. So for them to finish, being a Group 2 school against Seton Hall Prep, Milburn, Montclair, etc., that's quite the feat. They qualified for the state tournament once again. Declan Maizano made first team all-division. Mike Lepeski made second team, and Ben Batson and Nick Handler made third team. And then finally, girls soccer finished 6-8 this year, playing in the SEC American Division with 4 losses coming to teams that won or played in a regional championship. They also qualified for the state tournament. They had 2 first team all-division players in Emma Zalewski and Grace Madigan, 2 second teamers in Amelia Niziolek and Brooke Reinecker, and honorable mention players Natalie De Leon and Amelia Kohlhofer. So again, it was a great job by our student athletes this season, and a big shout out to our coaches and our trainer for keeping our kids safe throughout the fall season. As far as the winter season goes, right now we are up and running. Our hockey team they started play early January. Our basketball team was supposed to begin tonight, but those games got moved to tomorrow. So they'll be live tomorrow. If you guys are ever interested in live streaming the games, you can go to our athletics website. And when you go to the athletics website, underneath each game will be a camera link. So that camera link links you to all of our home varsity and JV games. And anybody who has an away live stream camera, it will also link them to that as well. And finally, our swim team, if anyone is interested in joining swim, please feel free to reach out to myself, Coach Iannucci, or Marielle McHugh for more information. We're looking for more swimmers to join the team. It's a great program. It's a lot of fun. You swim right out of the Caldwell Community Center. So, if you're interested, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And again, that wraps it up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Merkler, and congratulations to all our athletes.
I just want to chime in. Sorry, Lisa. Thanks to Mr. Merkler for the report, but I also, I know he thanked a lot of people, but I want to thank Mr. Merkler, because without his perseverance and ability to change schedules on the fly and find makeup games, it was a crazy season. And I want to thank the parents and the students and student athletes for their perseverance to be able to adjust on the fly. And I know some parents were trying to see the games and watch the games whatever way they could. I mean, especially for those seniors, the last season of them playing in some cases. So again, thanks to everybody, especially Mr. Merkler and the administration for helping to get this through. And I know winter sports are moving forward. So we keep our fingers crossed that we can continue on and, just play it safe. And again, we got spring sports coming around the corner, and we're voting on some coaches tonight, some stipends for them. So trying to do the smart thing and vote it, season by season, sport by sport. So, but again, thanks everybody for, hanging in there and working as a team to move this forward. So.
Thank you, Mr. Day.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything? So our first committee report, which is next on the agenda, is the athletic committee, and that's Mrs. Prisco and Mr. Allworth. So I don't know if you have anything to add.
Sure. Want me to take it, Tim?
Sure.
So, Mr. Merkler, thank you, as always, for all your hard work and dedication to our student athletes. And congratulations to all the student athletes for the fall, and wishing all the winter sports a good season now that they started. It is unfortunate that fans are not able to go watch the games. So like Mr. Merkler said, you could watch it live stream. So unfortunately, like for basketball, any indoors, you can't get inside. So, you could live stream those games. The fall coaches, we do have some fall coaches on the agenda for this evening. For Mr. Merkler is interviewing a girls soccer coach. He's in the process of interviewing. I think he said he had 9 applications for that. Field hockey is on for a vote tonight, and as well as an assistant football coach for next football season. Caldwell Community Center in negotiations with the contract is being signed also as well for the pool for our swim team. So again, if there's students that are interested in joining the swim team, please reach out to Mr. Merkler. The fitness center will be up and running hopefully end of February, early March. For the students, probably very small amount of students inside the fitness center in the weight room. And let's see, Caldwell Community Center. I think that's about it. And then we have some coaches other coaches. We have a swim team head coach and assistant coach on for tonight, winter track coach, and assistant boys and girls for vote tonight. Tim, do you have anything?
You got it all. Between you and Mr. Merkler, you got it all.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thanks
Prisco. The next committee that met is education, and that's Mr. Allworth and Mrs. Drappi.
I'll take this one. Thanks, Mrs. Fresky. So we had a short meeting, although they're never.
Oh, so it was short.
They're never very short. So I guess I'll start here is Governor Murphy has signed into law a new policy called Handle with Care. It's just to put into policy what the Verona district already does, which means it's just a close collaboration between the police departments and the school districts, and it helps the school districts be notified of any concerns in the home that police departments may have been aware of and school districts have not. So it really increases communication between the two. There's been some AP updates from the College Board, and I know Dr. Miller has been working on pacing suggestions just for COVID in particular, for remote learning and for in-person learning, hybrid learning. This next piece, I think really follows in line with the district's commitment to increasing awareness, particularly surrounding diversity and identity and racism, and follows along nicely with our initiative with Vince DeLucia on February 9th. And that is the proposal for a new course for next year for VHS titled The American Promise. And it's really focusing around power, equality, and freedom. It will be an elective course, 1 semester, and it takes a deep dive into the complexity of racial dynamics in the United States. And it's going to be done, with research projects and discussions and case studies, talking about what is this concept of the ideals of freedom, equality, equity, privilege, power, property ownership, wealth, criminal justice, societal norms, and popular culture. I mean, it's a lot to jam into one course, but it just sounds amazing. And this is exactly the kind of courses that, I think personally, are good to keep moving towards in order to better address these concerns in our culture. We had math PD on January 14th for grades 5 through 8 with Steve Jackson. January 25th was grade 3, and then the 28th will be grade 4. Dr. Miller worked, and with the help of many folks in the district, spearheaded the CUSAC reports and did a phenomenal job with them. Thank you for your endless hours on that, only to realize it has now been postponed after the fact. But thank you anyway for all your work, and we are very much prepared for the next round of CUSAC. We are looking forward to an update on the state standardized testing from the NJDOE in February. Not really sure what that update will be, if they're going forward with it or if it will be postponed. Fingers crossed. And there is professional development with Dana Clark, grades 5 through 6 ELA. I'm sorry, Dana Clark and Steve Shells, and that was Friday, January 8th. And then it will be January 29th for grades 7 and 8. Dr. Goebel and Mr. Shells, again, for world language professional development, also on January 29th. Non-tenured teachers, round 1 of observations have been completed. Thank you to the teachers and admin for getting that done in a timely fashion. And Dr. Miller met with the mentor teachers, really focusing on mental health for educators, which is becoming increasingly a significant concern across the board and all over the country. So thank you for working on that. And let's see. And it looks like, okay, so moving on to the next document, we have our ESL Access 2.0 testing has been rescheduled, but will be administered soon. And that was just because the HBW schedule was changed. Mr. Moriello had a CPAC meeting on December 14th, his parent coffee, over 50 participants, which is a great turnout. And we have our open house and lottery coming up for our preschool pre-K program. And that looks like that's it. Did I miss anything, Tim?
I'd have to ask Mr. Moriello. We had our meeting so long ago. Did you guys have that supporting stress meeting last week?
Yes, EFS did on January 13th have that parent presentation. We had about 34 to 35 parents there. It was well attended. They sent me the recording, so we'll be putting the recording up at a later date once I view it and just review the questions. I was present there also for the presentation, so it was very nice to see the parents there participating.
Mr. Moriello, could you briefly maybe speak to like what seemed to be the common theme in terms of questions asked or like the biggest concerns? I know mental health, of course, was the umbrella, but like, was there something that kept coming up, or was there something specific that stood out to you from that meeting?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the one on January 13th, there weren't a lot of parent comments at the end of it. The presentation had very few questions from the parent community, but the message that was being shared there was, first you need to take care of yourself. That's something that we've always been preaching here in Verona, is that in order to help others, you need to take care of yourself first. So, the presentation started off with that, and then it gave the parents many coping strategies that they would be able to use at home, and as well as talked about some community resources and also school resources that we have for our families. So as I mentioned, I'll be putting that up on the website under our school counseling website under ESS, and parents will be able to access at their liberty.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Drappi. Thank you, Mr. Moriello.
I had a quick question, Mrs. Fresky, and maybe this is more toward Dr. Miller, and I didn't want to put him on the spot, but I know testing like SATs and things like that, ACTs, they were, up and down, whether they were going to have them last year and now they're going into this year. I think Verona was hosting something or going to have it at our school sometime in the spring. Can you just confirm that? Because I know there's parents out there with juniors, or folks that might want to take it, or even I think most of the seniors probably would take it. But what is the timing? Have you heard anything about the SATs and ACTs?
Sure. We're going to host the SATs for our juniors. I'd have to look up the date. It's just giving right now. I was speaking to Ms. Gadaletta a while ago, but
it's in April. Also, Dr. Miller.
What's that?
It's going to be in April.
In April. Is it the third week? Well, I could check on my calendar really quick. Hold on. I put it in there. If not, I'll get back to you as we go over this. But it's in April. We're going to host. So we're PSAT. We're administering to our sophomores, and for the juniors, we're going to actually host the SAT, which is a first for us. We're going to have the students come in, and we're going to administer to them because of the complications. College Board has been delaying it and canceling because of COVID.
Yep.
The date for the SAT will be April 27th.
Okay.
And thank you, Ms. Gadaletta, for texting me that.
Off-screen help.
At the end of the day, we still don't know if the colleges are going to require it or not next year. It's still going to be loosey-goosey, but at least the fact that the students may have more opportunity this year than they had last year. So.
Yeah, and there are some colleges that will still consider it, and others agree there's a growing group they're not going to consider. They'll look at other variables, but so it's good. And they're also ending. Ms. Galetta reminded me that the writing portion will be ending this year as well for the SAT, because the colleges feel that they can get enough just from the writing and reading portion. The reading portion, I'm sorry.
Good. Thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Dr. Miller, I just have one more question. I'm sorry. Can you speak to the NJSLA graduation requirement? I believe I saw something about that as well, but we didn't get it. That was after our meeting.
Sure, because with what's going on this year with the pandemic, and we've had our kids in school more frequently than most school districts around us. The decision was a few things. One, the student growth objectives are not going to count this year. So for teachers, it'll just be on their performances from our observations. And if there's walkthroughs, et cetera, conversations. As far as the NJSLA testing, I think you're asking about, we don't know what they're saying yet. I held a roundtable meeting today with Dr. Beverly Pline. She is one of the higher ups in the state, and she says they do not know yet. So they said information will be coming out in February about that. They did extend the window from March 15th to June 11th, but I let her know, and I sent an email to our county folks today, Neil Webster and Lisa Schnall, that for Verona, 20% of our kids are home, and sometimes it feels like that's growing, and they're very sensitive with the testing. So I think that they're not going to have it, because I don't know if they're going to be able to get the kids who are coming to school. Again, east of us, where we are right now in Essex County, most schools are still remote, and I just don't know how they're going to be able to pull that off. So she says they're having some lively discussions, and then talking about the requirements for graduation. Ms. Gadaletta is letting me know here. Graduation requirements have been waived.
Yes, that's what I was thinking about. Okay.
Yeah, I just it's interesting when you look at it. If we do, going back to NJSLA, do testing, it'll only be through grades 9. So if we go back over the past few years, it used to be through juniors. 2 years ago, it was sophomores, and now we're talking about just freshmen. So I think we're narrowing that as well. So thanks, Ms. Cataletta, again, for your focus.
Thank you, Ms. Cataletta. Thank you, Dr. Miller.
You got it.
Are there any other questions on the education report? I'm just going to say thank you, Mr. Miller, for the invite that always gets extended to join your curriculum council. And each time that I'm able to make it, it's exciting. It's just exciting to be in the room with educators who are excited about what they're doing. And, Ms. Drappi did a great job at talking about that new course that's going to be available. And I always come away from that meeting excited and wish that we had these kind of options, back in the day. We'll just not date it, but back in the day. So yeah, thank you for the invite. I always appreciate that.
You're welcome.
The next committee meeting we have up was Buildings and Grounds Facilities, and that's Mrs. Prisco and Mr. Day.
Well, I'm gonna run with it, Pam. I'll run with it.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks,
First of all, the window project, Mr. O'Brien touched base on that. So very happy that we're getting that close to completion with HBW. And as you mentioned, FM Brown, we'll just be starting getting those windows in as soon as possible, just due to delays of delivery. But one thing I do want to say, though, I was driving on a Saturday morning to Chase Bank around, must have been 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30. And I'm driving around the corner heading to the ATM machine. And all of a sudden I see these guys hanging out at HBW putting in the window. So I was very impressed to see them working early Saturday morning, and it was a little chilly out. So I got to say they were working hard trying to get those windows in HBW. So thank you to Mr. O'Brien and the project team to get that moving and finishing it off sooner than later, right? Next item was rekeying. So basically, we're still working on rekeying the building. So at VHS, they're working on rekeying some of the doors in the HBW lockers, and then also at the high school locker rooms, and then FMB and HBW auditorium doors. They're having the hardware made for the specific cores. So again, just doing the finalizing the rekeying of the some of the school buildings. Then regarding fire alarms, OSI, the open system integrators, found a few heat and smoke detectors that were not on the old system that we had in place. So a change order was put to replace these detectors. And so the project will be 100% complete after that is done. Playgrounds, we had a bit of an issue at Forest Avenue. The Forest Avenue playground rubber surface was bubbling up in some areas. So we're working with the architects and the construction management firm, as well as the installers, to identify the reason, to correct the issue. It might have been just the way they graded it incorrectly initially that could be causing a problem with some water getting underneath it. So we're working with that group to get that item resolved. So again, we'll keep you informed about the playgrounds. Then we talked about the heating and ventilation. ECC, we'll be voting on that tonight. I'm so excited to be able to get that project moving forward and get the AC HVAC systems in the elementary schools and HBW. So that's the report. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Day.
Thank you, Jim, for that report. And then lastly, we had our finance report, and I will take that on. And Mr. Turner, if I misspeak or there's something valuable that I missed, please feel free to interrupt me and jump in. But it was pretty much a big overview at this point. I think Dr. Dionisio hit on some of the key points in his presentation. The December Secretary and Treasurer's reports have been completed. We are still in the process of wrapping up our audit. So we're a little bit behind. We should have that by the end of the week. February 5th is the anticipated date for the audit report. And hopefully that's going to come to us soon. We're beginning teacher negotiations for contracts. So we have been, Mr. Turner's been very helpful getting together our scattergrams for negotiations. I think Dr. Dinicio also touched upon the new health benefits program that became effective January 1st. And it looks like a lot of our people stayed with the old plan, so we didn't have a drastic reduction in our contributions. But anybody, I believe, hired on or after July 1st is going to go into the new plan. So each year going forward, it's just something, numbers that we need to keep an eye on. We're continuing to work on the budget and anxiously awaiting the state aid numbers. The state sent the guidelines out. They were released last week, and the governor is supposed to address the budget address for the state aid figures towards the end of February. February 23rd is the current anticipated date. So hopefully those come out. That's earlier than they usually come out, so that would be really great if they came out then. That's a wait and see. Also, Mr. Turner did bring to our attention that there's a second round of CARE grants that will be available, that's going to be released. So time will tell if we're eligible to get any of those grants. And we've been moving along with all the accounting for the referendum. So final payments have been going out on projects that have been completed. So that's all on time and within our scope of the money we had allotted for that. Mrs. Drappi, did I miss anything on that? Or is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, that's all I had. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Mr. Turner, I'm just going to ask you real quickly, did I do a good job? If there's anything I missed and you want to fill in.
Excellent job, Mrs. Freshy. You touched on all the points. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that's all I have for the Finance Committee. And if there's no questions in regard to that, we are going to open it up to public comments on our agenda action items that we will be approving through our resolutions tonight. So if there's any comments on the agenda items, now would be the time. And I would just remind you to please state your name, spell your last name if possible, and give us your address. And Mr. Roberts, do you see anybody up for that?
No,
I don't either. Okay, so we're gonna move on then. Are there any discussion items, old business or new business, that the board would like to address at this time? No, so we are going to keep moving then. And then next on our regular agenda is the roll call to vote on our resolutions. So I do need a motion to accept resolutions number 1 through 17.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
by Mr. Allworth, second by Mr. Day. Is there any discussion? I see on here that Mr. Corrado is resigning. So I do want to say congratulations on your move to wherever you're going to. And I do want to just put a shout out because he did have all 3 of my sons, and it was a great experience. And I did have an opportunity when I was a paraprofessional to work with Mr. Corrado in the classroom. So congratulations. You will be missed, and I just wanted to acknowledge it. And are there any other comments or questions on resolutions? No. So Mr. Turner, can you please do the roll call for the vote?
Mr. Allworth,
Yes.
Mrs. Drappi,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
and Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
The motions pass.
Thank you, everyone. And we do have addendum items. We have resolutions number 1 through 3. So I do need a motion to accept addendum resolutions 1 through 3.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Day
Second.
and second by Mrs. Drappi. And are there any comments on that? I am going to also do a quick shout out because I did see Mrs. Romano on there, and I did have the opportunity to work with her as well as a para. So it was nice to get to know you, and you will be missed as well, and good luck on your next move. Are there any other comments on those resolutions?
I would just like to make a comment on resolution number 3 for our contract with ECC. Thank you to Dr. Dionisio and everyone who worked so hard to get this contract going and, you know, helping to fulfill the final piece of the referendum, which is the finishing of the HVAC for HBW in the 4 elementary schools. So thank you for that.
Great. And if there's no more comments, I'm going to ask Mr. Turner to please do the roll call to vote.
Mr. Allworth,
Yes.
Mrs. Drappi,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
and Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion pass.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. And lastly, we will open up our public comments portion. And I would like to just remind people to please your name, your address, and we have a 5-minute limit per person. And I am going to ask Mr. Roberts to please do the honors of opening the lines for questions.
First is the Mullers.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Ron Mueller, 21 Linden Avenue in Verona. I just wanted to make a quick comment based off of Dr. Dionisio's earlier assessment of the Parents Reopening Committee for Elementary Schools. We just met yesterday. I'm on the Brookdale Reopening Committee with 2 other ladies, and we had a meeting yesterday with all of the parents from all of the reopening committees. Just to let you guys know, we are still going through a survey whether or not we're going to pause those discussions or not, but we we are still discussing things at our level, and we wanted everybody to know that, and we're still definitely committed to trying to have this discussion continue, particularly with understanding when we can start enacting the plans that we have put in place with the principals and the teachers, fully understanding when we can assess, a green, yellow, orange light status so that we can implement these plans, because we think that there's some really good plans and a lot of hard work that's been put in place by everybody in our committees. And then more importantly, we still want to continue what is needed in order to set us up for success as we move forward into September and next school year. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware that we're not going to pause. We're not going to be on hiatus. We're going to continue to work, and we'll be definitely getting back to you soon with some additional information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. That was a great update. I appreciate that.
Okay. Next is Jackie Fricky.
Hi, Jackie Fricky, 65 Grove Avenue. Thank you, Mr. Mueller, for that update, and thank you all for your time. I asked a few questions at the last board meeting regarding benchmarks and criteria for moving from stage 3 to stage 4, and those weren't answered, so I was hoping to get a little more clarity tonight. The answer I was given is that there's still a lot of uncertainty, and I completely understand that. I would hope that what every kid, every parent, every teacher, every administrator has learned this past 10 months is that we need to be prepared. So in my mind, it makes a lot of sense to at least set what those preliminary benchmarks are. You also mentioned the new strains. So I just wonder, how are we going to handle that? What's the worst case? What's the best case? What are we working on? I want to be very clear. I'm not asking to expedite a move into stage 4 next week, next month, maybe not even by June. I just really want to understand what the criteria is and what constitutes and validates that move. So is it, a percentage of community vaccination? Is it a particular community transmission rate? Is it a particular community positivity rate? Is it a number of staffing that needs to be hired? I heard your response last time that we all need to be flexible, and I have to be honest, I feel pretty flexible right now. My kids, my family, my job, my teachers, myself, we've all been very flexible and very accommodating, and I think we've all done a great job. To your point about not being out of the pandemic, I don't believe we're out of this educational crisis either. So we have people, like Mr. Mueller just said, continually, fiercely, productively working on improving stage 3. I'm so appreciative for those committees, and I do not in any way want to distract from the hard work they're doing. But I do want to know who's looking at stage 4. I think, I'm practical, I'm reasonable. I know our staff, our kids, our committees are doing a great job. I'm also goal oriented, and I think a lot of people are. We might be a long ways off from stage 4. Without benchmarks, I have no idea how far off we are, and I need to be able to manage expectations for myself, for my kids, for my employer. So I'm going to repeat my questions from last time. Number 1, what specific and quantifiable data will provide assurance of health and safety of staff and students to move into stage 4? And number 2, what specific and quantifiable improvements in the public health conditions are needed in order to move into stage 4? We cannot stop preparing and planning for what's next, even I believe if that looks uncertain. So I hope to see some accountability and some responsibility. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fricky. Dr. Dionisio, do you want to address that?
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Fricky. We hear your questions. We continue to work on this and communicate with the health department regarding, what the current transmission rate is. We're monitoring that with them. We're in consultation with them constantly. We want to move to stage 4 as well. We would love to get back to normal. I know we all would. That normalcy for our students is really important. For our staff, it's really important. And for our parents, it's really important. The biggest driver right now is still the 6 feet of social distancing. That 6 feet of social distancing is among all of the other precautions and measures that the district has taken, which are those best practices and recommendations, is what has kept that transmission rate really low in our schools. And I know that we've had cases, that's inevitable because people come into our buildings all the time. But our school-to-school transmission rate is so low. And for the most part, we've been staying on top of it and doing a really good job. And that's a testament to everybody in the community working together. The vaccine rollout is also going to be something that's going to be really, really important. And how quickly we can get not only our staff vaccinated, but our community members vaccinated to reduce that transmission level. So a lot of this is going to hinge on those 2 things. I'm very pleased and happy to hear about all of the progress from the different committees with our parents and our staff. I think that's where more ideas come up. And, as Mr. Mueller mentioned, and our principals will be updating at a future board meeting, as I mentioned earlier, the status update as to where the elementary committee is, the ideas that are being shared, what's a possibility for the future. We're going to take all of this information and in consultation with the health department, take a look at what does it look like long-term for us, and what does it look like, in the spring, and then what does it look like in September and next school year. Those are going to be really important. So I know there's still frustration. There's frustration there for everyone. I know that this has been hard for our kids and for parents and for staff. For as much as I would love to be able to point to something quantifiable as a piece of data at this point, the biggest driver right now is still the 6 feet of social distancing to limit the transmission of the virus, and making sure that we're sticking to that. And it is a very fluid environment still. And that vaccine rollout is going to be really important. So we're trying to get as much movement on that as well, for our community, not only for our teachers, which we want to get them vaccinated as quickly as possible, but we also want to get our community vaccinated as quickly as possible.
Dr. Dionisio, can I just ask a quick follow-up question to what you're saying? So you have said this time and time again, that the 6 feet of social distancing as recommended by the Department of Education and the Montclair Health Department is the biggest driver to not only reducing the transmission of virus, obviously, according to medical guidelines, but it also is what is kind of keeping us in this holding pattern in the stage that we're in. So if I can kind of paraphrase what you're saying, or better understand it, if I will, that if there is a reduction, that if the Department of Education, and the health department and the transmission rate is reduced to a certain level, and they decide that we can now reduce that 6 feet to 3 feet, that could be considered a sort of benchmark, if you will, towards moving towards getting more children into the building and moving us towards another stage of in-person instruction.
That's correct, because as our plan is at 6 feet, our classroom size can only accommodate so many people maintaining the 6 feet.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is Chris Walker.
Chris Waka, 85 Linwood Road and WACHA. I want to talk about next year, and we appreciate that the principals did a really good job, especially in the middle school, getting the cohort size down and the schedule improvements. But if we're able to get from the cohorts reduced during the height of the pandemic, I think, to be real, it shows that had we done better preparation and planning, last May and last summer, we should have been able to do that much earlier and not kind of lost so much valuable time. So for next year, what do we know? We know that it's very, very likely that upwards of 90 to 95% of the staff will have vaccines in them by the time September starts. But we also know that there's no way any kid under 18 years old is going to be able to get vaccinated by September. So we know that next year we're still going to see masks in classrooms. I'm hopeful, and I'd be very disappointed if we weren't able to get to a point next year where if you want to send your kid to school, because we know there's the governor's still going to allow the remote option, or we believe the governor's still going to allow remote option for next year, because they're not going to be sending kids to truancy court for not showing up to school when the virus is still alive and can affect kids that haven't gotten vaccines. So I'm hopeful that we get to the point where parents either sign a waiver or a hold harness saying, I'm going to send my kid to school. My kid's going to keep his or her mask on the full day. And I know that not all times my son or daughter will be able to social distance. And I know that we'll be in a lunchroom where, masks are going to have to be taken off. And if you want to send your kid to school under those conditions, go ahead. And if you don't want to, fine, go ahead, because the virus is going to be there whether you're in school or not. But I'd be disappointed if we got to the point in September where, due to lackadaisical planning or not optimized planning, we're still in a position where there's way more cohorts than need be, when we should have a fully vaccinated staff. And we also know, again, there's going to be no vaccine for anyone under 18 anytime soon. So I'm very hopeful that we could start planning super hard in September and early summer, so that we can get to the point where classroom size is maximized, and we give parents the decision to want to send their kids to school, yes or no, based on the virus and the facts that we have. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, for your comments.
Okay, next is Danit and Val Braver.
Hi, it's Denise Braver at 6 Cliff Street. My question has nothing to do with COVID. So basically, in the past year or two, issues of affordable housing and rent control have come up again at town council meetings, as Verona seeks to fulfill its affordable housing obligation and pass ordinance around rent control. And it's become clear to me from these meetings that there is a lot of fear and misunderstanding in town about what affordable housing and rent control are, and what incorporating these safety net protections will mean for our town. So I thought what an opportune teaching moment this would be for our kids to teach students to explore their fears and misgivings about affordable housing, to teach about the origins of housing segregation and poverty in New Jersey, to help students explore their visions for an economically just and environmentally just world, and housing, however imperfectly, might help to achieve this ideal. My fear is that if our administration and teachers do not commit to doing this teaching and emotional processing with students, that we are going to see people's fear and ignorance around issues of class and race translate into entitlement, hate, and bigotry when affordable housing is in place here. And it sounds like the new high school elective course, The American Promise, is an excellent first step, but I think it's important to standardize this teaching in humanities courses across grade levels in the middle and high school. So I would love to support the superintendent or any Board of Ed member who is interested in taking this work on with Dr. Miller, Mr. Shells, and or any interested teachers. So I'm wondering, are any of you interested in taking on this work? And if you are unwilling or unable to prioritize this, do you know of any teachers who would be interested in partnering with me on this? Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Braver. Dr. Dionisio or Dr. Miller, do you have anything to add to her comments?
Dr. Miller, I think that probably the best place would be perhaps a conversation with Mr. Shells. There could be an opportunity here within the humanities department for any teachers that may be interested, can get that word out. I also see that there could be a possible connection here with the committees that we will be forming in the coming months around race, class, and equity, because this could be a good tie-in as well. I mean, I know that that's going to be that diversity council is going to have a big umbrella. It's going to encompass a lot of different areas. So there may be a tie-in there as well.
Thank you, Dr. Dionisio.
Okay, next is R.C. Wells.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Suzanne Welsh, WELSH, 54 Hamilton Road. Good evening. Thank you all for your time. I want to bring up a topic about communication. I don't see Mr. Merkler here, but before I get started, I really just wanted to commend Mr. Merkler. Hi, Mr. Merkler. His communication skills are parallel to no one. He goes above and beyond for our children. Sports, especially for seniors, seems to be one of the only things that we have going on right now. And I will tell you that I sent him an email and he responded back much later than past his workday. So from myself and my husband, I just really wanted to say thank you, Mr. Merkler, for your timely communication. It is greatly appreciated. Speaking about that, I actually do want to talk about that because I've always taught my children that open and honest communication will always cut through about 99% of any and all issues. That being said, communication or the lack of communication seems to bring about confusion, skepticism, and quite frankly, a lack of confidence. With our seniors, which I will talk specifically about that since I am a mother of a senior, there are so many senior events that have been missed. We are now looking at basically 4 more months technically of school with capstone being approved. And I really just want to go through some of the events here, since really these kids have missed not only spring of junior year, but now all of senior year. So when it's all said and done, these kids are going to be graduating with roughly 2.5 years of high school. I have a letter here from a Bergen County public regional high school principal who sent out a letter back on January 14th, being very detailed as to not only graduation, but prom, fashion, a senior fashion show, etc. So before I start asking questions, I know that we all do have 5 minutes, and I would ask that when I do ask a question, if I will not be put on mute, so I would have an opportunity to rebut. First question is what is happening, or what planning is happening for the following? Obviously, graduation, prom, senior day, which is the college day, which is May 1st, senior group picture, club pictures, all of these milestones which our seniors have missed from September through now. And I'm hoping that since we have not heard anything, that I'm hoping that there has been some planning. So it's not only about words anymore, it now is about action, since really time is of the essence.
So before Dr. Dionisio, before you respond, I do want to say, Ms. Welsh, thank you for asking about changing the rules on the mute.
Yes.
But I think, to be fair and consistent, I prefer that you ask all your questions up front, and then we're going to just continue with that format. It just keeps our meeting moving.
No. And I absolutely, appreciate that. But my point is, if I do get 5 minutes and if I do have another question, then I either have to go back into the queue or then I have to wait for the next Board of Ed meeting. And honestly, time is of the essence. If we do not have answers, we need to get answers, especially from not only all the parents, but especially parents of seniors.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I'm still going to stick to the format, and what's not answered here, the advisor from any of those clubs or extracurriculars or the principal of the building, somebody will get back to you to address all of them. So if you would just do all your questions up front, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
No. And you know what, and that's fine. I know that know that there was an email that was sent out to Mr. Caldwell over 2 weeks ago, and we still have not had a response to. So that's why, again, I really wanted to center my time around the communication issue, because again, lack of communication is going to cause anxiety, not only for parents, but also for seniors. And I am talking about all students, but especially seniors, with the amount of loss that they have had. And it's very, very difficult when you see so many other schools around that are, going to school every other day. I know, Dr. Dionisio, when I had brought this up many months ago, you had said, well, they're not adhering to the 6 feet of distancing. So I absolutely respect that. But it is very, very hard when you see so many schools around, kids going to school every other day and have been going to school since September, have been having honor society, have been having events, have been able to have club pictures. And so that's why I really do need to get some answers. And I believe that I speak for many, that it really is time is of the essence to see what plans, if any, have been made.
Okay, that actually has been your 5 minutes. So I'm just going to turn it over to Dr. Dionisio to respond.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Welsh, for your questions. I'll just start off by saying we all recognize what our seniors are going through. And the seniors last year were affected, but I think the seniors this year are affected in a way that's even larger, has a bigger magnitude, because their whole senior year has been impacted. And we know that has been challenging for them. We also know that we know a lot more about the virus and its transmission, and people have become a lot more disciplined now and educated on how to handle the situation. So the circumstances have certainly changed. And I believe that people's confidence level in how things are being handled within communities and schools and activities is different today in January of 2021 than it was last spring, almost a year ago. What I can tell you is that I know the high school administration has been responding to parents and to questions when they come up. I can also share with you that there are our advisors, and our administration has been working on setting and making sure that these senior activities do occur, and occur as physically possible and as safely as possible prior to the pandemic. It's obviously going to look different than what it has in the past. But the advisors and our administration is working on a more typical graduation, a more typical prom and senior banquet, looking at ways to do a senior portrait, doing a lot of that brainstorming and figuring those things out. I do know that the high school administration has been responding. I do know that our advisors have been responding and answering questions. Please be assured that they're working on this. I do know that there's an SCA meeting coming up at the beginning of February. This is one of the topics that's going to be discussed. I would encourage you, Mrs. Welsh, and any parents who want more information to wait for that meeting, because there should be an update by then as to what the progress has been, and to be able to share that with the parents and have that dialogue accordingly. I'll also note that, yes, there are schools are doing different things. I can tell you that I stay in close communication with a lot of superintendents, especially the ones in the area. And there's a lot of similarity between our plans. And I could also tell you that about 2/3 of the county is closed. So I think that's what's different. And we just want it to be as normal as possible for the kids. And I know that our teachers, our advisors, our administration is working on that. So stay tuned. And it seems like hopefully good news will be forthcoming in the coming weeks.
And I just wanted to add, thank you for that, Dr. Dinicio, that there are 2 board members that have seniors. So we want to make sure that, our seniors have the opportunity to do what we can, based off the pandemic and what is safe. But we definitely have some board members here that will be, working with the administration and just, making sure that everything is done, the best we can for our seniors. So, and I know the administration will do everything they can to accommodate. But again, it's a tough time, and we're trying to, work as a group to make sure that things are done correctly and safely. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Day. Thank you, Dr. Dinicio.
Okay, next up is Torel Patel.
Hi, this is Torel Patel, 169 Forest Avenue. Good evening. First, I just wanted to give a big shout out to the entire HBW team. My 5th grader was super ecstatic for going in this week and for having the chance to go in again this week, later this week. And so I realized that was quite a lift. And so I just wanted to give a big shout out to the entire team that was behind that. And we're really appreciative of that. I was really also encouraged to hear by both Mrs. Freshy and Mrs. Drappy, and even some of the other questions that have come in, really focusing on the diversity task force and some curriculum and, the community presentation that's happening. And so I think it's just really great to see that this is all moving in the right direction. The elective course in the high school is great. It sounds like a really positive experience and option for the high school students. But I would really encourage, and maybe, Dr. Miller, this is for you, on how do we look at incorporating appropriate elementary age curriculum, right, on relevant topics, because we know the research shows that a lot of this behavior of racism and bigotry and bias forms really early. And so it's great to have it at the high school, but I think, and I know that the task force will take that on. So let me just also underscore how important it is to maybe try to accelerate, that task force coming together sooner rather than later. I think the longer we wait, the tougher the task really will be, because of the exacerbation with the pandemic and the remote learning and all of the things that we sort of talk about on every meeting. And I know you all are looking at really closely, but I'm eager to play a role in that. And I know you all know that because I've written you all emails, but I hear these great little pockets of work happening, and I just hope that, and maybe there's an update you can all share. And Dr. Miller, looking at you, the last email I think we received was in November. So sort of where are we on that task force is my one question. Second, I also sit on the elementary reopening committee, and so I was really happy to hear some of my parent peers talking about the work that is undergoing there, and the many meetings and conversations that we've been having. I've raised multiple times in that forum, and I want to raise it here, the incredible need and value for a community forum and town hall with the Montclair Department of Health. or other public health officials. It's happened recently in a neighboring district, and it really will help bring the community together, educate the community on the facts and the science, possibly mitigate mistrust on vaccine adherence, and all of the sort of really critical steps I think we as a community need to take in order to have all of the things that we're striving for, right? Going back to, full day in school and, teachers feeling safe, the parents feeling safe. I mean, it just cannot, there's no negative to it. And so if there's a way we can also accelerate, prioritize having that happen sooner rather than later, I really would encourage us to look at that. That's all I have. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and your suggestions and ideas. It's appreciated. Did you have anything that you wanted to add, Dr. Dionisio or Dr. Miller?
Dr. Miller, do you have an update on where we are? I know that you and Mr. Shells have been working in exploring and interviewing consultants, facilitators. So are you prepared to give an update as to where we are at?
Well, I can give a small update.
Sure.
So as everyone knows, we're experiencing a pandemic among many other things. We've reached out to a total of 8 different individuals to see if they would have interest in working with us with our diversity council or whatever we're going to call our group ultimately. We've gotten 4 responses back. One who we wanted to go with, we were pretty sure early on, but she ended up taking a position with another district and made that commitment. Recently, we 2 folks got back to us, and there's one we are interviewing tomorrow for a second round, who we think will be possibly the candidate that we would like to use moving forward. We appreciate everyone's patience, but for the most folks that we've reached out to, it requires us to fill out a form. And then sometimes it is a matter of a week or 2 before they get back to us, or we have to remind them that we reached out to them. Not many of them leave phone numbers. I guess it's what the consultants do. But last week, we had a really good first interview with someone who we think we may want to go with. Dr. Dionisio, I told you a little bit about that. We are going to have our second interview tomorrow, and then I will be able to give more of an update after that.
Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Got it.
Great. Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
And next is Julia Allen.
Hi, everyone. Julia Allen, 116 Elmwood Road. I have a quick question. I'm not on the elementary committees, as you guys know, but I have heard through some of the other folks on the committees that certain plans
Julia.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard some background noise. That certain plans might be looking to change in the future. I received an email as an elementary parent today that you guys are looking for lunch aids. And at this point, we obviously aren't having any lunch or even snack in the schools. So I just wanted to understand the context for that email. If there is a plan to bring the kids back in for a full day at some point during this school year, or if that's, just kind of you guys taking a look and seeing what the availability is for people who may want to pursue that line of work. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I could speak to that. I think similar to what the district has done around substitute teachers is it's a proactive measure to build up the number of individuals who would be available for the district to have as lunch aides. So that way, as we're making plans to the future and we're hearing recommendations from our community members and our school officials, our staff, that we have a foundation of what we can possibly do if there are options ahead of us. So I think it's just a proactive measure to see what the interest is there, especially since we did have some difficulty in being able to get substitutes this year. It was a very limited pool.
Thank you. Next is Danny Braver.
I don't have anything more to say. I don't know why I was in the queue twice. Thanks,
Your hand was
guys.
raised. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
That's okay.
With that, there's no further public comment.
Great. I do want to thank everybody for their questions, comments, ideas, suggestions. It's always appreciated. And although sometimes you don't see the work on here, everybody is diligently taking notes. And when we go into our breakouts and committee meetings and, you know, different connections during the time in between meetings, things are discussed, they're talked about, they're rolled around, they're, you know, and they come up in some form or another at another time. So I do appreciate everybody's input and patience on staying on the line and keeping with us. With that, we are going to have our next meeting on Tuesday, February 9th, with a confidential session beginning at 5:30 and our public session beginning at 7 p.m. And we will have Mr. DeLucia at the top of our agenda. So everybody can keep that in mind. And then I do need a motion to adjourn the meeting. It's 8:28.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Drappi.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Prisco. If there's any discussion on that, anybody have a burning desire to continue? If not, I need a roll. We could do all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's a wrap at 8:28. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
I like how everybody waves when they get off of Zoom.
Safe
That's
drive.
great. All right.